This is a lie!
The first time Rowan Vale lied for another woman, he did it with my blood still on his hands. I stood in the great hall of Thornmere Keep with rain dripping from my hair, mud on the hem of my riding gown, and 3 silver arrowheads laid on the table before me like funeral teeth. One had come from the ambush at Black Alder Ford. One had been found beneath my pillow. One, still wet and red, had been pulled from the shoulder of Celia Morn. Poor Celia. Sweet Celia. The soft-voiced refugee who had arrived at our gates with a torn cloak, a trembling mouth, and a story perfectly shaped to fit Rowan's hunger to be worshipped. She sat beside him now, pale against the dark wolf furs, her injured shoulder wrapped in linen, her loose gold hair spilling over his cloak. His cloak. The black one trimmed in storm fox, the cloak he had once placed around me after our bonding hunt, when he whispered that no winter would touch me while he lived. Now it covered her knees. The hall watched me the way wolves watch a wounded deer that has not realized it is already surrounded. Rowan Vale, Alpha of Thornmere, my promised mate, my childhood oath brother, my almost husband, looked at me as if I were a stranger who had crawled in from the marsh. Mara, he said, and the softness of my name in his mouth made the insult worse. Tell the truth before the elders. Where did you get Shadowmere arrowheads? I laughed once. No one liked the sound. You know where I got them, I said. I took them from the raiders who tried to kill your patrol at Black Alder Ford. Celia flinched. It was small, but I saw it. I had been trained to see small things. My mother had been a border captain before fever took her. She taught me that battles were decided by the detail a proud man dismissed, a strap cut too cleanly, a horse sweating on one flank, a witness who cried before pain reached the wound. Rowan did not look at Celia. He looked only at me. The raiders wore no house marks. Their arrows did. Or you planted them. The hall breathed in together. Something inside me went very still. 3 years earlier, under the blood moon, Rowan had found my wolf in the old pine wood. I had shifted late, later than the other noble daughters, and my father's enemies had called me half-baron in the blood. Rowan had knelt before the whole pack, pressed his forehead to mine, and sworn that my wolf answered to no clock but her own. He had made me believe patience could be love. Now he was asking whether I had staged an attack against his men. Across the table, Celia lowered her eyes. A tear slid down her cheek and stopped at the corner of her mouth. She did not wipe it away. She never wasted a tear by hiding it. I never meant to cause trouble, she whispered. There it was, the knife wrapped in wool. Rowan turned toward her at once. His anger changed shape. It became protection. It became tenderness. It became everything he had stopped giving me after Celia entered the keep. This is not your fault, he told her. Not my fault. She had said those words the night his silver cup filled with bitter root. She had said them when my signet was found in the ruined chapel where her chambermaid claimed I had met a Shadowmere spy. She had said them when the wolf pups in the training yard found their meat salted with moonbane and my kitchen key lay beside the barrel. Every time she insisted I was innocent, people heard that she was too gentle to accuse me. Every time I defended myself, they heard a jealous Luna afraid of being replaced. The elders sat beneath the carved beams, their gray heads bowed together. Old Sir Edric would not meet my gaze. Dame Isabeau, who had once praised my maps, watched the arrowheads as if they might speak and save her the trouble of courage. My father was dead. My mother was dead. The servants who knew my habits were frightened. The soldiers who owed me their lives had been sent to the Southern Watch by Rowan's order that morning. Celia had arranged the room before I entered it. That was when I understood she did not merely want Rowan. She wanted my place, my name, and the obedience of everyone who had ever benefited from my silence. I placed both palms on the table. The silver arrowheads caught the firelight. Ask Captain Soren, I said. He saw me pull the first arrow from Bram's horse. Ask healer Anya. She treated the poison on the shaft. Ask the stable boy who washed mud from Rowan's saddle and found black reed seeds from the Shadowmere bank. Ask anyone who was actually there. Rowan's jaw tightened. Soren is away. You sent him away. Because border patrols matter more than your pride. My wolf rose so fast my teeth ached. Celia made a frightened sound and curled her fingers into Rowan's sleeve. He stood. Alpha power poured from him like heat from a forge. Lesser wolves bowed their heads. Servants shrank. The iron chandeliers trembled. Once, that power had made me feel safe. Now it pressed against my throat and asked me to kneel to a lie. Enough, Rowan said. You have been cruel since Celia came here. I excused it because our bond was old. I excused the cold looks, the missing jewels, the insults through servants. I excused the way you refused to welcome a woman whose pack was burned. Her pack was not burned, I said. Celia went white. At last Rowan looked uncertain. Only for a heartbeat. Then Celia whispered, Please do not make me tell it again. And uncertainty died. He crossed the distance between us. Rainwater shone on the floor around my boots. His hand came up, not to strike, but to seize the moonstone pendant at my throat. The pendant of the future Luna of Thornmere. His mother had worn it. His grandmother had worn it. During our betrothal rite, Rowan had fastened it around my neck with shaking hands. Until this matter is judged, he said, you will not wear my house. He tore it free. The chain cut my skin. Gasps broke around the hall. He did not see the blood. He carried the pendant to Celia and placed it in her lap for safekeeping. The old Mara would have pleaded. She would have asked him to remember the ford, the pine wood. The night fever took his brother and I held the keep together while he grieved. She would have searched his face for the boy who had tied blue ribbon around his wrist and promised he would always know me. That girl had been dying by inches for weeks. The chain finished her. I looked at Celia. For the first time, I let her see exactly what lived behind my silence. Her hand tightened around the pendant. Good, let her feel the weight. Keep it, I said. Rowan frowned. Do not. I reached to my left wrist and untied the black cord of our private oath. It was faded now, nearly gray, but I remembered the day he gave it to me. We were 12, hiding from etiquette lessons in the Falcon Mews. He had cut the cord from his own training bracer and said that when we were Alpha and Luna, no court snake would crawl between us. I set the cord beside the arrowheads. I release you from every promise you are so eager to break. Celia's lips parted. The elders stirred. Rowan stared at me as if I had slapped him. You do not get to release me. Watch me. My voice carried this time. It rang against shields, benches, rafters, and every old silence that had taught me to endure. By the witness of Thornmere's hearth, by the blood of my mother who defended these walls, by the wolf in me that you chose not to trust, I withdraw my consent from this bond. The hall erupted. Rowan's alpha command struck next. Stop. Every wolf in the hall froze. So did I, for half a breath. Then my own wolf answered. She did not roar, she laughed. It came up through my bones, silver and cold, a sound older than titles. Rowan's command cracked around me like thin ice. His eyes widened. He had forgotten what I was because I had spent too long making myself smaller for his comfort. I turned and walked out of Thornmere Keep while rain hammered the stones and the future Luna's pendant burned in another woman's hand. No one followed me. That was their first mistake. The second was believing I had left with nothing. I had taken the ledgers. Not the household accounts, though those would have been useful. I took the border ledgers my mother taught me to keep when I was 15, weather marks, trade routes, wolf scent records, patrol absences, healer inventories, messenger paths, burial notes, guest lists, and every oddity a careless ruler would call gossip. For 6 weeks, Celia had been filling those ledgers without knowing they existed. The night she arrived, she claimed she had fled through the marsh for 4 days. Her slippers were torn, but the soles held red castle dust from the eastern road, not peat. She claimed Shadowmere raiders killed her escort. No carrion birds circled the marsh that week. She claimed she had eaten roots to survive. Her nails held saffron from noble kitchen cakes. I wrote it down. When Rowan began visiting her chamber after midnight, I wrote that down too. Not because I was jealous, though jealousy had bitten me at first. I wrote it because guards changed at those hours, because his absence left the west stair uncommanded, because Celia's maid passed messages through the laundry gate while the alpha forgot his own walls. When my ruby comb vanished and reappeared beneath Celia's pillow with 3 strands of her hair wound around it, I did not shout. I wrote the names of servants who had touched linen that day. When bitterroot clouded Rowan's cup and my herb knife was found in the pantry, I wrote the herb room key list, the one missing pinch of ash salt, and the way Celia's wounded hand never smelled of poison, though she claimed to have knocked the cup aside. By the time Rowan ripped away my moonstone, I possessed enough truth to hang her. I had lacked only a court willing to listen. So I went north. The road from Thornmere to Frostharrow climbed through black pine, broken watchtowers, and hills where ancient kings lay under stones too large for ordinary men to move. Rain became sleet by midnight. My horse Vesper hated every mile and told me so by trying to bite my knee whenever I dismounted. At dawn, 3 riders found me near the Wolf Bridge. They wore frost-gray cloaks and carried spears tipped with blue steel. Their leader had a scar from ear to chin and the bored expression of a man who had already killed all the fools who impressed him. "Name yourself," he said. "Mara Ashbourne, daughter of Captain Elira Ashbourne, formerly betrothed to Rowan Vale of Thornmere." The scarred man glanced at my throat, where the torn chain had left a red line. "Formerly?" "Very." That earned the smallest lift of his brow. "Why seek Frostharrow?" "Because Thornmere law would bury me beneath Rowan's embarrassment. Because Celia's lies had roots beyond one hall. Because my mother's oldest letter said, if the southern packs ever turned their teeth inward, take the winter road and ask for Cassian." I did not say all that. I said, I have evidence of Shadowmere infiltration through Thornmere, and I request hearing under the Northern Compact. The rider stopped looking bored. "You know those words?" "My mother helped write the first draft." The 3 riders exchanged a look. The pines moved under wind. Far away, a wolf howled once and went silent. "Then ride," said the scarred man. "Lord Cassian dislikes being kept from useful trouble." Frostharrow was not beautiful in the way Southern singers understood beauty. It had no rose gardens, no jeweled fountains, no polished marble saints. It was built from dark granite and stubbornness on a cliff above a frozen river. Smoke rose from longhouses. Children practiced spear forms in the lower yard. Women in mail argued beside grain sledges. A white wolf banner snapped over the gate, plain as a verdict. Lord Cassian Winterholt received me in a council chamber warmed by one narrow hearth. He was not sitting on a throne. That unsettled me more than grandeur would have. He stood over a table covered in maps, sleeves rolled, dark hair tied back, one hand braced beside a line of carved markers. He was taller than Rowan, broader in the shoulder, and older by perhaps 6 years. His power did not fill the room. It waited in him, leashed and awake. That made every other wolf in the chamber careful. His eyes were pale gray. Winter eyes, my mother had called them in her letters. Men with those eyes either see too much or nothing human at all. Cassian looked at my wet cloak, my cut throat, my travel-stained boots, and the leather case I carried under one arm. "Elira Ashbourne's daughter," he said. "You knew my mother." "She saved my left flank at Red Fen and called me an arrogant pup afterward." "That sounds like her." His mouth moved, almost a smile, then discipline closed it. "You ask for hearing under the compact. That is not a shelter for broken engagements." "Good," I said. "I did not come here to weep." The scarred rider coughed into his fist. Cassian's eyes sharpened. "What did you bring?" I opened the leather case. Ledgers, wax rubbings, cloth strips, a broken reed whistle from the laundry gate, a sketch of Celia's supposed shoulder wound drawn before the linen bled through, a list of every servant paid in coin too new for Thornmere mint, 3 black feathers sealed in a pouch, Shadowmere used crows for courier rights. Everyone knew that. Fewer knew they trimmed the left feather at a diagonal so messages could be sorted by touch in darkness. Cassian did not interrupt while I spoke. That alone nearly broke me. I had grown used to fighting for the right to finish a sentence. When I laid out the final page, his beta captain leaned closer. If this is true, Thornmere's west gate is compromised. Not if Rowan changed the guard after I left, I said. Cassian looked at me. We both knew Rowan had not. Men who mistake humiliation for injustice do not strengthen gates. They punish mirrors. The Northern Compact required 3 things before intervention: evidence of cross-pack conspiracy, risk to civilian lives, and refusal or inability of the local alpha to investigate fairly. I had all 3. Cassian assigned 2 scribes to copy my documents, 1 healer to inspect the chain cut at my throat, and a courier to summon Captain Soren from the Southern Watch. You will remain in Frostharrow as witness, he said. I will remain as petitioner, not prisoner. A few heads turned. Cassian regarded me for a long moment. Then he said, correct. 1 word. It should not have mattered. It did. They gave me a chamber overlooking the frozen river. I slept with a dagger under my pillow and woke before dawn to find hot broth outside my door. No note, no servant hovering to measure gratitude. Just broth, bread, and a clean strip of linen for my throat. I ate standing by the window. Below, Frostharrow moved like a machine built from living people. Smiths opened forges. Riders checked girths. Children carried kindling. A woman with 1 arm corrected a boy's shield grip by kicking his ankle. No one looked idle. No one looked ornamental. At Thornmere, I had been displayed as Rowan's future. At Frostharrow, usefulness mattered more than shine. By the 2nd day, Soren arrived. He came in with frost on his beard, fury in his eyes, and a bandage across the ribs where Shadowmere steel had found him at Blackalder Ford. Tell me Rowan is dead, he said. Sadly, no. Pity. Captain Soren had served my mother before he served Thornmere. He had watched me learn a sword by falling into mud 600 times and had never once called a bruise unladylike. When he saw the mark at my throat, his face changed. He did that? He removed a necklace. With his claws? With his certainty. Soren spat into the hearth. The nearest Frostharrow scribe pretended not to notice. His testimony completed the first circle of proof. He confirmed the arrowheads, the ambush pattern, and the fact that my map had saved half Rowan's patrol. He confirmed Rowan dismissed the Shadowmere marks after Celia fainted in his tent. He confirmed he had been sent away the morning of my hearing without reason. The girl is bait, Soren said, and our alpha swallowed hook, line, and the fisherman's hand. I closed my eyes briefly. Not from pain. From relief that someone had finally named the obvious. The compact court convened at moonrise. Cassian presided with 3 neutral elders, 2 scribes, a healer, and an oath basin carved from river stone. I told the story once. Only once. No one made me perform pain until it satisfied them. No one asked whether I had smiled enough at the woman sleeping with my betrothed. No one suggested jealousy, explained Courier Feathers. The healer examined the sketch of Celia's wound. Self-inflicted or assisted, she said. The angle is wrong for attack from another wolf. Too shallow near the shoulder, too theatrical across clean flesh. The courier master studied the reed whistle. Laundry gate signal. 3 notes for west stair clear, 2 for alpha absent, 1 for kitchen watch. The coin master weighed the new silver found with Celia's maid. Shadowmere mint, struck this winter. Each answer landed like a stone in water. By midnight, the pattern had become too large for even cowardice to ignore. Cassian ordered riders to Thornmere at first light with a formal demand. Secure Celia Morn, seal the Westgate records, preserve servant testimony, and present Alpha Rowan Vale for inquiry within 3 days. I asked to go with them. No, Cassian said. The word struck a bruise. My eyes lifted. He held my gaze and added, "Not because I doubt you, because she wants you in that hall when the next performance begins. We will not give her the stage she prepared." That was different. I hated that he was right. So I stayed. Waiting was harder than leaving. Leaving had been motion. Waiting was a room where memory sharpened its knives. I remembered Rowan teaching me to skip stones on Lake Vale, Rowan kissing my knuckles before our betrothal feast, Rowan laughing with Celia over sugared pears while I stood beside the map table trying to warn him about missing patrols. Rowan's face when he gave her my pendant. Every betrayal contains two wounds: what happened and the fool you were before it happened. On the third evening, the riders returned without Celia. The West Gate records had burned. 2 servants were missing. Rowan had refused the demand. He sent a letter instead. Cassian read it aloud in the council chamber because insult, like mold, grows better in private. Lord Winterholt, Mara Ashbourne is overwrought, ambitious, and recently unstable. She has long resented Celia Morn, a survivor of Shadowmere violence. I will not surrender an injured guest to northern aggression based on the ledgers of a jealous woman. Thornmere remains sovereign. Any rider who crosses my inner gate without invitation will be treated as hostile. Rowan Vale, Alpha of Thornmere. The chamber went quiet. Soren's hand closed around his sword hilt. I felt nothing at first. Then I felt very tired. Not broken, not surprised. Tired in the way a body grows tired after carrying water to a burning house while the owner keeps locking doors. Cassian folded the letter once. He has refused inquiry. One elder nodded. The compact is triggered. Another said, if we move troops, southern packs may call it conquest. Then we move law first, Cassian replied. He looked at me. Mara Ashbourne, do you consent to public release of your evidence and testimony? Consent. The word entered the room cleanly. Not permission stolen through pressure. Not a command disguised as care. A question with space inside it. I consent. By dawn, copies of the evidence rode to 7 packs, 3 abbeys, 2 trade guilds, and the Moon Council. By noon, bards in market squares were singing the outline badly but loudly. By dusk, Rowan could no longer bury the matter as a lover's quarrel. Celia moved before the news trapped her. She accused me of sorcery. It was clever, I will give her that. In the southern packs, a woman with records is suspicious. A woman with accurate records is unnatural. By claiming my ledgers were moon-cursed, she gave Rowan's pride a new altar to kneel before. Her second letter reached the Moon Council before Cassian's riders did. Lady Mara Ashbourne has long practiced blood sight beyond lawful right. She sees what is not there. She hears wolves in walls. She once told me my dead mother screamed beneath my skin. I fear she has used grief and forbidden craft to twist Lord Winterholt against Thornmere. She signed it with shaking ink. She enclosed 3 witnesses. All servants. All paid in Shadowmere silver. The Moon Council summoned us to Highmere Abbey for full inquiry under sacred oath. This time I went. Highmere Abbey stood on a ridge where 5-pack borders met. Its stones were old, white, and cold enough to make every lie feel theatrical. Moon priests loved that. They believed discomfort purified motive. In my experience, discomfort mostly made hungry people hungry and guilty people dramatic. We arrived at dusk, Cassian, Soren, 2 Frostharrow elders, the healer, the courier master, and me. Rowan arrived an hour later. Celia rode beside him in a white litter. Of course she did. The courtyard filled with pack envoys. People climbed walls for a better view. I heard my name whispered 100 ways. Jealous, betrayed, witch, poor thing, dangerous thing. Rowan dismounted and helped Celia down as if she were made of spun glass. Then he saw me. For one moment, his face opened. The cut at my throat had healed to a thin red line. I wore no jewels. Frostharrow had given me a dark riding coat, fitted for movement instead of display. My hair was braided back. My mother's dagger sat at my hip. I did not look ruined. That angered him. Men who push you into a grave expect the courtesy of seeing dirt on your face. Celia saw it too. Her fingers tightened on his arm. Mara, Rowan said. Alpha Vale. The title landed between us like a locked gate. His mouth tightened. You have made this uglier than it needed to be. I looked at Celia. No, I made it public. Cassian stepped to my side, not in front of me. That distinction traveled through the courtyard faster than a shout. Rowan noticed. Winterholt. Vale. Alpha power brushed the air. Rowan's was hot, bruised, eager to dominate. Cassian's remained still. The courtyard wolves lowered their eyes anyway. That was when Rowan understood what everyone else already knew. Cassian was stronger. Celia understood too. Her fear was real for the first time. The inquiry began under full moon. The Abbey Hall had no tapestries, no corners, and no shadows deep enough to hide a face. At the center stood the oath basin. Moonwater filled it, silver under the roof opening. Any wolf who swore over it and lied would show some sign. A tremor, a scent shift, a change in the eyes. Not perfect proof, but enough to make skilled witnesses useful. Celia asked to speak first. Naturally. She came forward in white wool, hair unbound, my moonstone pendant at her throat. The hall murmured. Rowan did not take it from her. Useful. Let everyone see. I loved Lady Mara once, Celia began. Soren made a sound like choking. I did not smile. I know grief made her hard, Celia continued. I know Lord Rowan's kindness to me wounded her pride. I forgave the looks, the missing meals, the words left on my door. I even forgave the first poison because I thought pain had turned her mind. But when she cut me under the thorn hedge, I knew silence would endanger the pack. She lifted a trembling hand to the pendant. I never wanted her place. The moonwater shivered. Only a little. Priests leaned in. Celia swayed. Rowan rose halfway from his bench. She is injured, he said. She is testifying, said the presiding priest. Celia dipped her fingers in the basin. By the Moon Mother, I speak truth. The water stilled. A murmur of awe moved through the hall. Rowan looked at me with triumph and pity, the most unbearable mixture. But Cassian's healer, Anya of Frostharrow, narrowed her eyes. So did I. The water had stilled too quickly. Not truth, interference. Moonwater reacts to blood. A strong coagulant on the skin can flatten its surface for a few breaths, long enough to fool a priest watching for ripples instead of scent. My mother had taught me that during a murder trial when I was 14. Anya stood. Wash her hands. Celia froze. The presiding priest frowned. Explain. No explanation needed if she is clean. Rowan's anger flared. You insult a wounded woman under sacred roof. Cassian spoke for the first time. Then sacred roof can survive water. Laughter broke from the western benches before the priests smothered it. Celia's eyes flashed. There she was. Not poor, not soft, not frightened, just furious that the script had changed. They brought plain well water and ash soap. Celia hesitated one heartbeat too long. The hall felt it. Rowan felt it. Even he could not unfeel it. When she washed, gray film slid from her fingers. Anya caught the basin cloth and held it to the moonlight. Ash thorn gum, she said, used by smugglers to quiet oathwater, rare, expensive, illegal in 3 packs. The hall broke open. Celia staggered back. Rowan caught her on instinct, then realized everyone was watching and let go. The first crack opened. I stepped forward. My turn. No one stopped me. I placed both hands in the basin. The water rose cold around my wrists. Moonlight struck my skin, and my wolf stirred beneath it, not trapped now, not begging, present. I did not poison Rowan Vale. I did not cut Celia Morn. I did not invite Shadowmere through Thornmere's gates. I did not use bloodsight upon her except under danger and oath. The water brightened. Not stilled, brightened. Silver climbed my fingers like living frost. The hall went silent. My mother's bloodline had been old before most southern houses learned to carve doors. We were not witches. We were witness wolves. Under moon and oath, truth answered us through marks others missed. Rowan had known that once. He looked at my hands as if seeing them for the first time. I withdrew them and held out my ledgers. Now read. They read until candles guttered. Scribes recited dates, gates, coins, wounds, patrol gaps, and witness contradictions. Soren testified. Anya testified. The courier master demonstrated the reed whistle until every envoy understood how Thornmere's laundry gate had been turned into a spy road. Then came the servant Celia had purchased. The first lied badly and vomited into the oath basin. The second wept before touching the water and confessed the letters had been dictated by Celia's maid. The third tried to run. Frostharrow guards caught him at the abbey door with Shadowmere coins sewn into his boot. By dawn, Celia's white gown looked gray. Still Rowan resisted. Pride is a beast with deep claws. None of this proves she serves Shadowmere, he said, voice hoarse. It proves she was afraid. It proves Mara gathered every small thing and twisted it. Something moved through the hall. Not agreement, weariness. I almost pitied him. Almost. Then I remembered the pendant at Celia's throat. Ask her about the Morn pack, I said. Celia's head snapped up. Rowan frowned. Her pack was burned. No, I said. Morn Hollow bent knee to Shadowmere 9 winters ago. It was not burned. It was absorbed. Celia Morn is not a refugee. She is Lord Odrin Shadowmere's niece by his sister's bastard line. Celia lunged at me. That was her worst mistake. She had spent weeks pretending to be breakable. Now, before 6 packs in the Moon Council, she moved with trained speed. A dagger slid from her sleeve, black-edged and thin. My wolf rose. I caught her wrist before the blade reached my throat. For one breath, we were close enough that I smelled the truth of her. Rose oil, fear, iron, ash thorn, and Rowan's skin. He was easy, she hissed. The hall heard. Not everyone. Enough. I broke her wrist. The dagger rang against stone. Celia screamed without art. The moonstone pendant swung forward. I caught it in my free hand and tore it from her neck. The chain snapped. Rowan stood motionless. I turned and threw the pendant at his feet. Your house, I said. Your judgment. It struck the stone, bounced once, and lay there between us. He stared at it as if it were a dead child. Celia collapsed under guards. Her sleeve had ripped open, revealing a tattoo inside her arm. A black thorn curled around a crescent moon. Shadowmere's inner mark. No refugee bore that. No frightened guest received that by accident. The priests declared her testimony void. The Moon Council ordered her held for treason, conspiracy, and attempted murder under sacred roof. Her maid confessed before noon. 2 Thornmere servants named the payment route. 1 missing gate guard was found hiding in an abbey stable with enough silver to buy a farm. The Moon Council wanted a clean ending. Councils always do. A clean ending lets old men wash their hands in polished basins and pretend water can carry away the stink of their hesitation. They wanted Celia chained below, Rowan warned, Thornmere fined, and me praised in a formal voice before everyone rode home relieved that justice had not disturbed supper. I refused the clean ending. When the senior priest began to announce recess, I stepped into the center of the hall with the broken pendant in my palm. The ending is premature. Conversation died across the benches. The priest's brows drew together. Lady Ashbourne, the traitor, has been exposed. A traitor has been exposed, I said. The gate she used remains open. The people who ignored it still hold keys. The alpha who gave her my authority still commands the pack she weakened. Rowan flinched. Let it hurt. Pain that arrives late should still be received. One of the southern envoys muttered that the hour was improper. Cassian looked at him once, and the man remembered he liked breathing. Soren folded his arms beside the witness bench, not smiling, not helping, simply present. That steadied me more than comfort would have done. I petitioned for emergency custody of Thornmere's gate ledgers, armory seals, patrol rosters, kitchen accounts, and household testimony under the Northern Compact, I said. The senior priest blinked. You are not Thornmere's Luna. Correct. The word felt better than it should have. I lifted the pendant by its snapped chain. Moonlight struck the stone. It had once rested against my throat like a promise. Then it had lain in Celia's lap like a verdict. Now it was only an object made smaller by everything it had failed to mean. I am the injured party, the falsely accused witness, and the bloodline cartographer who documented 3 months of enemy movement while Thornmere's alpha dismissed warnings as jealousy. If title is required, ask the room who currently knows more about Thornmere's compromised roads than I do. No one answered. Silence can be a witness when properly cornered. Dame Ysabeau, who had lowered her eyes in Rowan's hall, stood slowly from the Thornmere bench. Her mouth was pale. Her hands shook around her prayer beads. Lady Mara is correct, she said. Rowan turned on her. Ysabeau. She did not sit. I failed her, the elder said, and the words seemed to scrape blood from her throat. I saw the gate counts change after Celia came. I saw the southern patrol doubled away from the west road. I saw Lord Rowan refuse Captain Soren's warning because Lady Celia wept. I told myself obedience preserved order. Her gaze found mine. It preserved rot. That confession mattered more than she knew, not because it healed anything, because cowards who speak late still open doors other cowards fear. Old Sir Edric rose next. He looked 10 years older than he had that morning. I advised delay, he said. I told the Alpha a woman's quarrel should not be dressed as a border crisis. I said that. Why? Asked the priest. Edric's face twisted. Because I did not want to admit a young woman had read the war better than I had. The hall changed after that. Not softened, sharpened. A kennel master testified that 3 Thornmere hounds had lost Celia's scent at the laundry gate because someone had washed the stones with vinegar and grave ash. A kitchen girl admitted she had been ordered to leave my key beside the poisoned pup meat, then threatened with her brother's enlistment papers if she recanted. The missing southern patrols were traced through Rowan's own countersign, written in his hand after Celia told him I looked frightened by men who respected me. Each fact pulled another nail from the floorboards. Beneath the house, the pit waited. The Moon Council granted emergency custody before noon. Rowan objected. Of course he objected. Men who call distrust cruelty become very fond of procedure when truth reaches for their chair. You cannot place my pack under a foreign lord, he said. We are not placing it under Lord Winterholt, the senior priest replied. We are placing the compromised records under compact review. Rowan's gaze cut to me. This is what you wanted. The old accusation surfaced. Even now, with Celia's mark exposed and Shadowmere silver piled on the evidence table, he needed my pain to be ambition. If I wanted safety, I was grasping. If I wanted truth, I was vengeful. If I wanted distance, I was cold. There was no doorway through which I could leave his story as an honest woman. So I stopped trying. That is exactly what I wanted. His certainty faltered. I wanted the records sealed. I wanted the gates examined. I wanted the servants protected before you frightened them into silence. I wanted the pack I served not to bleed because you preferred being adored to being warned. His face went white. I did not lower my voice. And I want one more thing. The senior priest looked wary. Name it. A public dissolution of every betrothal, claim, courtesy title, household expectation, an implied future between Rowan Vale and me. Not a pause, not a wounded lover's quarrel, a severance. Enter it into Moon Council record before any negotiation about Thornmere begins. Rowan took one step forward. Mara, no. The sound nearly touched the girl I had been. Nearly. I remembered him at 15, soaked from lake water, grinning as he stole apples from the harvest cart. I remembered him at 19, standing between me and a drunken cousin who mocked my late-shifting wolf. I remembered the morning after his brother died, when he fell asleep with his head in my lap and grief made him young. Those memories did not vanish because he had betrayed me. That was the cruel part. Love leaves archives. But archives are not orders. I will. He looked at the priests, at the envoys, at Cassian, at everyone except the woman whose necklace he had torn away. I was deceived. You were willing. The words landed clean. Even the scribes stopped breathing loudly. Rowan's throat worked. Celia poisoned my judgment. She flattered it. That is not the same thing. For the first time since the hall hearing at Thornmere, he had no answer ready. The senior priest cleared his throat. Lady Ashbourne, dissolution is legally possible. The Alpha must confirm release. Rowan's eyes snapped to him. I will not. The room inhaled. My wolf stepped forward inside me, calm as snow on a blade. Then I invoke abandoned trust. The older priests stiffened. Younger envoys began whispering, asking what that meant. Few used the rite anymore because it embarrassed powerful houses. That was why my mother had taught it to me. Laws that embarrass power should be memorized early. I spoke the old formula in a voice that did not tremble. When a promised alpha strips rank under false charge, gives consort symbol to another, and refuses inquiry after sacred summons, the injured party may set the bond before Moonwater and ask whether trust remains enough to bind. The oath basin had been emptied after Celia's corruption attempt, scoured with salt, and filled again from the Abbey spring. Its surface waited black and bright. Rowan whispered, "Do not do this to us." "You did this in your hall," I said. "I am only asking the moon to write it down." I placed the broken pendant in the basin. For one breath, nothing happened. Then the moonstone cracked. The sound was small, a little brittle note, like ice giving way under a boot, yet Rowan jerked as if struck. Silver light seeped from the stone in threads, twisted once around my wrist, once toward his, and then recoiled from him so sharply the water climbed the basin wall. The senior priest went still. "Trust does not remain," he said. I had known. Hearing it from someone else's mouth still hurt. The old bond thread, the one made of childhood promises and future ceremonies, lifted from the water like a pale hair. It reached for me first. My wolf looked at it, not with rage, with recognition. Then she opened her jaws and bit through it. The thread burned without smoke. Rowan made a sound that was not quite my name. The mark inside my chest loosened. No grand music answered, no moonbeam crowned me. Freedom, at its first touch, felt mostly like the removal of a hook I had learned to breathe around. I bowed to the basin. "Enter it." The scribes wrote. Ink can be merciful when witnesses are not. By sunset, Thornmere was no longer a wounded romance. It was a security failure under review. Rowan was ordered to return with compact riders, submit the West Gate to audit, and surrender temporary command of border patrols to a council of 3 captains, including Soren. Dame Isabeau requested a place on the review board. I did not forgive her. I supported the request anyway because guilt, properly harnessed, can pull useful weight. Celia tried one final performance before they took her from Highmere. They brought her through the lower passage in iron cuffs lined with wolfsbane ash. Her wrist hung splinted. Her hair had lost its careful softness. Without white silk, borrowed cloaks, and an audience trained to pity her, she looked smaller. Not harmless. Never harmless. Just reduced to the size of her own choices. She saw me waiting near the stair. "You think he will love you again after this?" she asked. A laugh rose and froze before my teeth. That was the prison she lived in. every act measured by whether a man looked back. Not for him. Confusion crossed her face. Then why? I stepped closer, close enough that the guards shifted. Because you opened my gates, poisoned my name, endangered children in the training yard, and taught frightened servants that lies were safer than truth. Rowan's attention was the least expensive thing you stole. Her mouth tightened. He would have tired of you anyway. Perhaps. That answer angered her more than denial. You are supposed to hate me. I do. I let her see it then. Not the hot, messy hatred she could use. The cold kind. The kind that counts prison locks, witness routes, names of handlers, uncle's debts, border trails, and every loose thread leading back to Shadowmere. But hate is not my shepherd. The guards took her below. The next morning we rode for Thornmere. I had thought returning would feel like walking into my own grave. Instead, it felt like entering a house after fever, when every blanket smells wrong and every cup must be boiled before touching lips. People lined the road from the outer village to the keep. Some had mocked me in market squares. Some had looked away when Rowan tore the chain from my throat. Some had believed Celia because belief was cheaper than courage. Now they watched from doorways with pale faces, clutching aprons, caps, children, account tablets, anything that gave their hands occupation. No one cheered. Merciful. Cheers would have insulted us both. At the inner gate, the laundry stones still held faint scratches from the reed whistle's cord. Soren crouched, touched one mark, and looked up at me. You saw this? Too late. Earlier than the rest of us. That was not comfort, it was correction. I accepted it. The audit began in the West Tower. We found more than I expected and less than my nightmares had promised. 3 dead drops in flour barrels. A tunnel beneath the old rain cistern that servants had thought sealed since Rowan's grandfather. Patrol rosters altered with careful sanded strokes. 2 children from the village paid in sweet cakes to count how many riders left by moonrise. A prayer niche behind Celia's chamber wall held maps, wax seals, coated linen knots, and a tiny portrait of Lord Odrin Shadowmere painted on bone. The portrait disturbed Rowan most. Not the tunnel, not the children, not the poisoned meat. The portrait. Because it proved Celia had belonged to someone else while he imagined she belonged to him. Even his remorse had vanity in it. I did not say that aloud. Not everything true deserves immediate air. During the second night of audit, a Thornmere mob gathered below the guest yard. Men who had toasted Celia's delicate courage now wanted her burned without trial. Women who had repeated lies about me now shouted that they had always known the girl was false. One fool threw a stone through the room where her maid was giving testimony. The maid screamed and recanted 3 sentences from fear. I walked onto the balcony before Soren could stop me. The courtyard roared my name. My name. After weeks of spitting it like spoiled wine, they lifted it like a banner. That should have felt sweet. It felt dangerous. I raised one hand. The sound thinned. You believe too quickly, I said. Faces changed. People like revenge until it glances back. You do not repair that by believing the opposite just as quickly. You do not cleanse cowardice by changing the target of your shouting. Every witness will speak under protection. Every accused servant will be questioned with records present. Every guard who took coin will face law. No one burns because a crowd needs to feel righteous before supper. A man near the well called, "She ruined you, my lady." No, I said. She exposed what ruin could enter. That quieted them more thoroughly than Alpha Command. I looked across the courtyard at the windows where I had once waited for Rowan to return from hunts, at the chapel where my betrothal ribbon had been blessed, at the hall where he had given my pendant to another woman. I am leaving Thornmere when the audit ends. The murmur rose like disturbed birds. Rowan stood below beside the stair, half hidden in torchlight. I made sure my voice reached him. Do not ask me to stay because truth finally embarrassed you. Do not offer me back what you threw away. The woman who wanted that future died in this courtyard while you were comforting her murderer. Someone sobbed. It might have been one of the kitchen girls. It might have been memory. If you want to honor me, I said, build a pack where the next woman does not need a northern court to be heard. Then I went inside and finished the ledger review. The final Thornmere hearing lasted 2 days. No singers would love that part. Too many numbers. Too much grain theft, courier timing, stable feed, wax inventory, and gate oil. Yet that was where the true war had lived. Not in Celia's tears, not in Rowan's cloak, in the boring places proud alphas rarely inspect. We named 23 compromised routes. We closed 11. We left 4 open under false watch and fed Shadowmere forged news until Lord Odran sent riders into a marsh road that Frostharrow had already emptied. We discovered the abbey had one junior priest who liked silver too much and penance too little. We found 2 Thornmere widows whose missing sons had not run away but been taken as leverage by Shadowmere agents. I wrote their names myself. Evan Reed, Rowan Vale. Names matter. Villains prefer numbers because numbers do not have mothers. On the last evening, Rowan entered the West Tower while I sealed the final copy. He knocked first. That was new. May I speak? You may stand there and use words. He almost smiled, then realized he had no right to find me familiar. The silence between us held everything we were not going to get back. The captains have accepted the review board, he said. Isabeau will chair it for 6 months. Soren will command West patrols. That is necessary. The kitchen girl keeps her position. Her brother's enlistment papers are void. That is closer to repair. He swallowed. I found your old maps. My hands stilled over the sealing wax. Celia had hidden them in the chapel wall. She meant to burn them if the audit reached her room. I said nothing. Rowan placed a leather tube on the table. The end cap bore soot. I should have read them. That failure has a cost. I should have read you. That was closer to the wound. I pressed the seal into wax and lifted it clean. I was not a difficult language. His face broke in a way that would once have dragged pity from me like a hooked chain. I felt pity. I did not obey it. Mara, I loved you. I believed that once. That hurt him more than accusation. I loved you with the parts of me that knew how. They were not enough. For once, he did not defend himself. Will you ever forgive me? The question was too small for the damage, but perhaps it was the only one he could carry. Not today. He nodded as if the words deserved weight. Will you come back if Thornmere changes? I capped the ink. Thornmere must change for the people who cannot leave. Do not make reform another way of calling my name. His eyes shone. Where will you go? Away. With Winterholt? There it was again, the old shape. If I left one man, I must be going to another. I took my mother's dagger from the table and slid it into my belt. With myself. The answer stood between us, sharper than any blade in the tower. At dawn, I rode out through Thornmere's western gate. No procession, no bridal carriage, no pitying escort arranged to make my departure respectable. Soren rode as far as the 3rd border stone because he had business with the new patrol, and because friendship sometimes lies politely about business. Anya sent a box of salves. The kitchen girl tucked warm seed cakes into my saddlebag and ran away before I could thank her. Dame Isabeau bowed from the steps. I returned the exact depth courtesy required, no more. Rowan waited by the gatehouse. He wore the plain gray of mourning, though no one had died except the version of himself he preferred. In his hands he held the mended moonstone pendant. The crack remained through its center. Gold wire bound it together, careful and useless. I thought you should have it, he said. I looked at the pendant. Once, I would have reached for it with both hands. Now I saw only a collar polished by women before me who had also been told endurance was honor. I will not take it. His fingers tightened. It belonged to you. It belonged to the future you imagined when I was convenient. The wind moved over the road. Vesper stamped behind me, impatient with human ruin. I unfastened a small iron token from my glove and placed it on the gatestone. It bore the Ashbourne mark, an open eye above a road. Send copies of the 6-month review to Frostharrow, Shadowmere, and my own hand. Fail once, and I will return as auditor, not memory. Rowan stared at the token. Your own hand where? I smiled then. Not kindly. Not cruelly. Freely. You are no longer owed my address. I mounted. For a moment, every sound thinned, hoof shifting on frost, tower flag snapping, Rowan's breath catching, the far ring of a smith beginning work before sunrise. I thought walking away would require rage. It did not. Rage had carried me to the door. Clarity turned the latch. Soren lifted 2 fingers in farewell. Anya, practical to the end, shouted that if I reopened the throat scar by riding too hard, she would personally stitch my mouth shut. That made me laugh. The laugh startled Rowan. Let that be the memory. Let him remember that the last sound I left in Thornmere was not pleading. I rode west until the keep shrank behind black pines and the road forked toward countries where my name was not yet a cautionary tale. At the 3rd stone, Soren drew rein. You could command here, he said. Not Thornmere. Elsewhere. Anywhere. Eventually. And now? I looked at the open road. Snow had fallen in the night, thin and clean over mud. Vesper tossed her head, eager to ruin it. Now I learn what my own silence sounds like when no one is filling it for me. Soren nodded. He did not understand completely. He did not need to. He turned back toward Thornmere. I rode on alone. By noon, the land changed scent. Less peat, more pine resin. Frostharrow territory waited beyond the river, and with it Cassian Winterholt, courts, ledgers, dangerous work, and whatever future I might one day choose. I did not hurry toward it as a rescued woman runs toward a rescuer. I let the road be long. I let the cold touch my face. I let every mile prove that no bond pulled me back. Truth did not arrive like sunrise. It arrived like floodwater. It carried filth with it. Rowan came to me after the judgment. Of course he did. The abbey courtyard was bright with winter sun. Envoys gathered in knots, already reshaping events into reports that made their own packs look wise. Celia had been taken below. Cassian stood at the far gate speaking with Soren. He could have stayed near me. He did not. He understood this ending belonged to me. Rowan approached without cloak, without guards, without the arrogance he had worn like armor. Please. I looked at the man I had loved since childhood. He looked younger, ruined, not innocent, smaller, as if certainty had been the frame holding him upright and truth had removed it. I was wrong, he said. You were. He flinched. I should have listened. Listening would have saved lives. I thought, he swallowed, I thought you hated her because I had been kind to her. You were not kind. You were flattered. Color rose in his face. Good. Shame should have a pulse. She knew how to make herself need me. And I had made the mistake of not needing you loudly enough. His eyes filled. Once, that would have undone me. I would have touched his sleeve. I would have forgiven too quickly because grief in his face still looked like the boy from the Falcon Muse. Now I saw the man who had held Alpha Command to my throat. Come home, he said. At last, the request showed its shape. Not will you hear my restitution. Not what did my failure cost you. Not how do I make Thornmere safe for the people I endangered. Come home. As if I were a misplaced cup. I am not coming back. His hope went blank. Mara, the bond can be restored. The priest said because it was not completed, because you withdrew under distress, there may be a right. There will be no right. I love you. The words struck old places. They did not command them. You loved being loved by me, I said. You loved the girl who made your rule easier, who translated your temper for elders, who softened your failures before servants saw them. When I became inconvenient, you called me cruel. When Celia became useful to your pride, you called her innocent. That is not love strong enough to build a life on. He shook his head. I can change. Then change. Hope flashed in his face. I killed it cleanly. For Thornmere, for your people, for whatever woman may one day choose you with her eyes open, not for me. The courtyard wind lifted my braid. Rowan looked beyond me to Cassian, and old jealousy sparked through his ruin. Is it him? The absurdity almost drew sound from me. Even now, he needed my leaving to belong to another man. It is me. Those 3 words ended more than our betrothal. They ended the version of myself that had waited years for permission to stand at full height. I walked away from Rowan Vale for the 2nd time. This time, everyone saw. The Moon Council's formal record spread faster than scandal. Celia Morn, proven Shadowmere agent, had infiltrated Thornmere through false injury, seduction, household bribery, and staged victimhood. Alpha Rowan Vale had failed inquiry, compromised border security, and wrongfully stripped Mara Ashbourne of rank before evidence. Thornmere owed restitution. Shadowmere owed blood debt. The Southern Pacts owed me apology. Apology came cheaply. Restitution did not. I demanded 3 things. First, Thornmere would reinstate every guard and servant punished after speaking in my defense. Second, Rowan would surrender West Gate Command to a council of captains for 1 year. Third, my mother's border ledgers would be copied into law as the Ashbourne Protocol. No accusation inside an Alpha household could be judged without material evidence, witness separation, and inquiry into who benefited from the charge. The elders balked at the third. Not because it was unjust, because it was inconvenient. I stood before the Moon Council and waited while old men explained that households required trust, that too much procedure weakened authority, that rank existed for a reason, that false accusations were rare. When they finished, I asked one question. Rare for whom? Silence did the rest. The protocol passed by narrow vote. Cassian did not speak for it until asked. Then he said, a ruler whose authority cannot survive accurate records deserves smaller rooms. The vote widened. Afterward, he found me in the Abbey archive. I had gone there to breathe among dust and dead arguments. Scrolls lined the walls. My mother's name appeared in 3 old reports, always in the margins, always attached to some correction a more famous man had later claimed as strategy. Cassian stood at the doorway. You won, he said. I survived publicly. That is often harder. I looked at him then, really looked. He was not handsome in the easy Southern way. His face was too severe, his nose had been broken at least once, and a scar crossed one eyebrow. But he had a stillness that did not ask the room to feed it. Power sat in him like a sword in a well-kept sheath. Why did you help me? I asked. Your evidence met the compact. That is the official answer. Your mother once told me that law is what powerful men praise until it touches their breakfast. I wanted to see whether I had learned anything since. That answer pleased me more than flattery would have. And did you? Some. I almost smiled. He noticed. He did not act as if he had earned it. Frostharrow has need of a border mind, he said. Not as charity, not as hiding. We are preparing for Shadowmere retaliation. I offer you the post of Southern Intelligence Steward, with seat in Winter Council and authority over courier audits. I waited for the trap. None appeared. My rank? Under your sole authority. My quarters? Locked to your name. My ledgers? Copied for court when needed, otherwise yours. My right to disagree with you in public? At last, the almost smile returned. Expected, preferably with warning if you intend to humiliate me before visiting envoys. No promises. Reasonable. So I went to Frostharrow again. Not as Rowan's rejected woman. Not as Cassian's future anything. As Mara Ashbourne, Southern Intelligence Steward, daughter of a captain, witness wolf, owner of one ill-tempered horse and 2 trunks of documents sharp enough to cut. Work saved me from becoming a monument to my own betrayal. Shadowmere moved within a fortnight. Celia's arrest had exposed one road but closed another. Their Lord Odran was an old wolf with patient cruelty and no romantic attachment to failed agents. He sent raiders toward Frostharrow's salt caravans, bribed a river priest, and spread rumors that Cassian kept me as a bedded spy. That last one amused the Frostharrow cooks for 3 days. The salt raids did not. We caught the first party near Glass Ravine because I recognized the timing, 3 nights after market tithe, during sleet, when drivers were tired and guards looked inward toward warmth. Rowan had lost 2 wagons to the same tactic 2 winters earlier. He had blamed unlucky weather. I had written down the pattern. Cassian let me plan the counter. No hovering, no correction for show. He asked hard questions, challenged weak points, and accepted strong answers. When I said the decoy wagon needed a woman driver because Shadowmere scouts underestimated them, he did not ask whether that was safe for the woman. He asked which woman. We used Tamsin Pike, a one-eyed teamster who could curse a mule into religious reflection. The ambush failed spectacularly. By moonrise, Frostharrow held 9 raiders, 3 cyphernauts, and 1 furious Shadowmere captain whose boots contained a map of Thornmere's West Farms. Not Frostharrow. Thornmere. I stared at the map while cold moved through my ribs. They will hit Rowan while he is still politically weakened, Cassian said. That is the obvious strike. You do not have to help him. I am not helping him. I folded the map. I am helping the farm children who did not tear a chain from my neck. Cassian nodded once. No praise, no surprise, just acceptance. We rode south with 60 Frostharrow wolves and warning banners. Thornmere did not welcome us. The gates opened because the Moon Council had ordered cooperation, but every stone of the keep seemed to remember my exit and resent my return. Servants stared. Guards looked ashamed. Elders looked older than they had 2 weeks before. Rowan met us in the yard beneath bare branches. He saw my Frostharrow cloak. He saw Cassian beside me. He saw the armed riders waiting behind us. For once, he chose the right words. What do you need? Not why are you here? Not how dare you? What do you need? Progress can arrive wearing a face you still do not want to touch. Authority over West Farm evacuation, I said. Soren over gate response. Your silence during planning unless asked. Several elders stiffened. Rowan swallowed pride like broken glass. Granted. The next 18 hours became a blade drawn through old cloth. We moved families from 3 farms under cover of charcoal wagons. We placed archers in haylofts. We flooded the lower ford by breaking an old mill dam my mother had marked years before. We sent false lantern signals from the chapel ridge, inviting Shadowmere toward empty barns and mud deep enough to hold a horse screaming. Rowan followed orders. That was the strangest part. Once I had dreamed of ruling beside him. In practice, I had ruled around him, beneath him, through him, always softening my knowledge so it did not bruise his pride. Now he stood across the map table and wrote what I told him to write. It was too late. But it saved lives. The Shadowmere raid came before dawn. They expected sleeping farms and a shamed alpha. They found abandoned houses, flooded ground, and wolves waiting in blackthorn ditches. Cassian held the ridge in white wolf form, massive and silent, his breath steaming under the dying moon. Rowan led the east charge. Soren cut off retreat. I stayed at the signal tower with Tamsin Pike and 3 young archers whose hands shook until I told them fear meant their bodies had read the room correctly. When the first fire arrow rose from the ravine, I rang the old bronze bell. Thornmere woke not to panic, but to plan. By sunrise, Shadowmere's captain was dead, 2 spies were taken, and not 1 farm child had been lost. Victory should have tasted sweet. It tasted like smoke and wet wool, and the knowledge that all this could have been prevented if Rowan had listened 6 weeks earlier. After the battle, Thornmere gathered in the yard. No one had ordered them. They came because people can smell a reckoning even when no bell calls it. Rowan stood on the lower step. His armor was dented. Blood streaked his temple. He looked at me before speaking, then looked away, as if he had learned not to ask my face for permission. "I failed this pack," he said. The yard stilled. I failed Mara Ashbourne. I failed the West Gate. I failed every guard who brought me unease and received dismissal because the truth offended me. Celia Morn did not succeed because she was clever alone. She succeeded because my pride made a room for her. The yard held its breath. Public confession is ugly when done correctly. It does not polish the speaker. It strips him. Rowan removed the alpha ring from his hand. Gasps broke out. For 1 year, under Moon Council sanction, command of Thornmere's gates will rest with the Captain's Council. Steward Mara Ashbourne's protocol will govern household accusation. Any servant punished for testimony will receive wage and apology before witnesses. His gaze found mine at last. And the moonstone pendant is retired from betrothal use. It will hang in the hall as record of a trust I broke. That hurt. Not because I wanted it, because the girl who had once worn it had deserved that respect before humiliation taught him its cost. The pack turned toward me. I could have destroyed him then. A sentence would have done it, a cold laugh, a reminder of his hand at my throat. The crowd was ready to follow whichever emotion I fed. That temptation was sharp. I let it pass. "Keep your reforms longer than your shame," I said. Then I walked to Vesper, mounted, and left Thornmere for the 3rd and final time. This time, no part of me looked back. Winter hardened. Frostharrow became work, and work became rhythm. I built courier maps until my fingers cramped. I questioned captured spies. I trained young recorders to notice what powerful people hoped would pass as background. I argued with Cassian in council over patrol depth, grain escorts, prisoner handling, and whether one could trust a repentant smuggler who confessed only after losing 2 teeth to a tavern door. Cassian usually listened. Sometimes he was wrong. Sometimes I was. The first time he overruled me publicly, the chamber waited to see whether I would break. I did not. His reasoning was sound, and I said so. The first time I reversed his order before witnesses, every elder watched for punishment afterward. It never came. He sent me a revised map at supper with 3 notes and a bowl of pear stew. Trust, I learned, is not built by never being wounded. It is built by what happens after pressure enters the room. Celia's trial concluded in the dead of winter. She confessed only when shown letters from Shadowmere naming her expendable. I was present by right, not hunger. Her beauty had thinned. Without soft lighting, useful tears, and Rowan's cloak, she looked like what she was, a trained blade angry at the hand that had thrown her poorly. "You think you are different from me?" she asked through the bars. "In every meaningful way." She laughed. "Because you had a mother who taught you ledgers? Because an alpha king listens when you speak? Because when pain gave me a knife, I chose where to point it." Her face twisted. For one moment, I saw the child she might have been before Shadowmere taught her survival as conquest. Then she spat at my feet and the moment died. The court sentenced her to life in the Northern Stone Convent, where spies with useful memories copied border histories under guard. Execution would have made her simple. The convent made her useful without making her powerful. She hated the sentence. That told me it was exact. Shadowmere did not forgive the insult. Lord Odran sent a formal challenge to Cassian, single combat under wolf law for interference in southern sovereignty. It was a trap wrapped in tradition. If Cassian accepted, Shadowmere assassins would strike Frostharrow's winter stores during the spectacle. If he refused, weak packs might call him afraid. The council argued for hours. Finally, Cassian asked me, "What does Odren want us to look at?" That was the correct question. "You," I said, so we look at his hands. We accepted the challenge publicly and moved the stores secretly. We invited envoys, prepared the arena, and let rumors carry every wrong detail south. Meanwhile, Tamsin drove flour under dung covers through the East Pass, Soren hid archers in the abandoned quarry, and I sent 3 false defectors toward Shadowmere with news that Cassian would wear his ceremonial blue armor. On the morning of the duel, Cassian entered the ring in plain black. Odren's assassins struck the empty granary. Our archers closed the quarry behind them. The duel lasted 7 minutes. Cassian did not kill Odren quickly. He broke his sword, his right knee, and finally his command howl before the envoys. A wolf lord can recover from wounds. He cannot recover from the sight of lesser wolves hearing him howl and choosing not to answer. When Odren fell, Cassian placed a boot on his chest and looked toward the envoy stands. Sovereignty is not a curtain for trafficking children, bribing gates, and staging lies in another alpha's hall. Then he looked at me. "Steward Ashbourne has the indictment." I rose. Every face turned. Once, a hall had turned on me because a pretty liar bled at the right time. Now 5 packs listened while I read names. Not poetry, not vengeance. Names, dates, roads, payments, orphan houses, courier marks, poisoned cups, burned ledgers, and the murder of 11 children in a training barn Shadowmere had fired to hide its records. Facts can be more brutal than any blade if you let them stand in order. By sunset, Shadowmere's allies withdrew recognition. By midnight, his own nephew surrendered the East Fort in exchange for trial instead of execution. By dawn, the Blackthorn banner came down. No song ever gets that part right. They sing that Cassian broke Odren and claimed the South. He did not. We spent 6 miserable months preventing famine, revenge killings, forged claims, and priests from declaring every frightened Shadowmere servant equally guilty. We opened storehouses. We burned debt ledgers that had been written against stolen children. We tried handlers. We protected witnesses. We argued about roads until even Soren threatened to fake deafness. That was how victory became a realm. In spring, Frostharrow held the first open council after the Shadowmere fall. Delegates filled the long hall. Northern captains, southern farmers, Thornmere elders, former Shadowmere villagers, river priests, guild women, 2 abbots, and a row of rescued children sitting under guard because half of them still stole knives when anxious. Rowan came too. He looked steadier, thinner, less golden. When our eyes met, he bowed. Not as lover, not as penitent begging entry. As one ruler's witness to another. I returned the bow by exactly the depth protocol required. Nothing more. The council lasted 3 days. On the second, an elder proposed that southern stability required marriage alliances among the great houses. His gaze slid from Cassian to me with the oily confidence of a man discovering a solution that cost him nothing. "Lord Winterholt and Lady Ashbourne have already shown unusual cooperation," he said. "A formal bond would settle rumor and secure the border." The leash came out disguised as policy. The world never tires of trying to turn a useful woman into someone's symbol. Cassian leaned back. The hall waited for him to claim or deny me. He did neither. Lady Ashbourne answers for Lady Ashbourne. I stood. My cooperation does not require ownership. My reputation does not require laundering through a man's bed. If I ever bond again, it will not be to comfort frightened diplomats. The rescued children enjoyed that. The abbots did not. Rowan looked down at his hands. The elder withdrew the proposal so fast the scribe had to ask him to repeat the withdrawal for the record. That evening I found Cassian on the eastern wall. Snowmelt ran below in silver threads. The sky held the pale green shimmer that southern poets always exaggerate and northern soldiers barely notice. "Thank you," I said. "For what?" Not answering before I did. He was quiet long enough that I looked at him. "I wanted to," he admitted. "To defend me?" To tear his argument apart. To say no one in that hall had earned the right to speak of your bed, your bond, or your usefulness as if arranging furniture. "Why didn't you?" "Because my anger in your defense could still have become another hand on the reins." That answer entered me slowly. Not like fire. Like warmth returning to fingers after frostbite, painful, real, and impossible to rush. "Cassian." He turned. I had no speech prepared. For once, that was good. Prepared speeches had carried me through trials, councils, and war rooms. This needed less armor. "I am not ready to be anyone's Luna." I did not ask. I noticed. The corner of his mouth moved. "For the record, I am also not looking for a woman to stand behind me in ceremonial blue." "Good. It is an ugly color." He laughed then, quietly, and the sound startled both of us. The months that followed did not become a romance song. They became something better. Cassian and I worked. We fought over policy. We rode border inspections. We visited the stone convent where Celia copied courier histories under a guard who never reacted to tears. We opened 3 moon houses for children trained as spies. We forced Thornmere, Frostharrow, and former Shadowmere villages to share road costs, which produced more outrage than the duel. People will forgive war before they forgive a fair tax. In midsummer, Rowan requested formal audience. I granted it in the council chamber with scribes present. He brought no flowers, no old tokens, no private letter. He brought revised gate records, servant restitution lists, and a copy of the Ashbourne protocol bearing Thornmere's seal. "We have kept it for 6 months," he said. "We will keep it permanently." That matters. Mara Stonebrook has agreed to serve as household law steward. Mara was a widow with 3 grown sons, a sharp tongue, and no patience for handsome alphas. Excellent choice. "Mara will not flatter you." He hesitated. "I owe you more than this." "Yes. I do not know how to pay it." That was the first honest thing he had said about apology. "You cannot pay all of it," I said. "Some damage becomes history. Your work is to make sure it does not become custom." He nodded. Before leaving, he placed the old black oath cord on the table, the one I had left beside the arrowheads. Someone had preserved it. "I thought you might want to burn it." I looked at the faded cord. Once, it had held my whole future. Now it looked like what it was, old thread. "No," I said. "Put it in Thornmere's archive beside the Pendant record. Let young wolves see how easily private promises fail when public law is weak." Pain crossed his face. He bowed anyway. After he left, I sat alone for a while. Cassian found me there near dusk. "Do you want company or quiet?" "Company that can be quiet." He sat at the far end of the table. For a long time, neither of us spoke. That was how I knew I trusted him more than I had meant to. Autumn brought the Red Moon Assembly, where Pax renewed treaties, judged appeals, exchanged foster wards, and pretended not to inspect unmarried nobles. I arrived as Frostharrow's chief southern steward, wearing a dark green gown cut for riding and a silver pin shaped like an open eye. Not a wolf, not a moon, an eye, my office, my choice. The assembly was held at Stonecross, the same fortress where Rowan and I had once danced as promised mates before every important family in the South. Memory waited in corners. So did gossip. By midday, 3 matrons had asked whether Lord Winterholt intended to formalize his attachment. One young alpha suggested that my broken betrothal made me politically available. Tamsin Pike spilled cider on his boots and claimed weather. Then Celia's final weapon appeared. A packet arrived from the stone convent addressed to the assembly court. Inside were copied pages in Celia's hand, accusing me of conspiring with Cassian before her arrival. staging my own humiliation to trigger northern intervention and seducing 2 alphas into war for personal elevation. It was desperate. It was also dangerous. Some lies do not need belief, they need only fatigue. People were tired of trials, tired of Shadowmere, tired of a woman whose innocence had already required them to admit too much. The hall shifted. I felt it. Rowan stood before Cassian could move. Absolutely not. The word cracked across Stonecross. Stonecross went silent. Rowan walked to the center of the hall. He looked at the packet, then at the envoys. I know what it is to prefer a lie because the truth humiliates you, he said. I know what it costs others when an alpha asks suspicion to do the work of evidence. If any person here entertains this accusation, let them first name the material proof, the witness chain, and the prophet. If they cannot, let them admit they are hungry for a woman's disgrace because her vindication made them uncomfortable. Silence swallowed the hall. He turned to me. There was no plea in his face. Only witness. Lady Ashbourne owes us no second trial. Something in my chest eased that I had not known was still clenched. Not forgiveness. Not return. A knot cut clean. The presiding elder dismissed Celia's packet as malicious repetition. The convent restricted her correspondence to verified legal matters. The assembly moved on, somewhat embarrassed, to a dispute over bridge tolls. That night, under the red moon, Cassian asked me to walk. Stonecross had an old battlement overlooking fields where harvest fires burned gold. Music drifted from the lower court. I could hear Rowan laughing once with Mara Stonebrook, who had apparently bullied 3 elders into approving servant testimony reforms before supper. You are smiling, Cassian said. Mara is going to improve Thornmere by force. Poor Thornmere. Lucky Thornmere. We walked until music thinned. Then Cassian stopped beside a broken merlon where moss grew through stone. Wait. I looked at him. His usual stillness had changed. Not broken, opened. I will not ask you to be my Luna tonight, he said. That is a dramatic beginning for not asking. Noted. Continue. I want to bond with you, not for treaty, not to silence rumor, not because your pain prepared you to fit beside me. I want the life that has already been growing between us. Argument, work, quiet, correction, trust. If you never want the right, I will still want your counsel. If you do want it someday, I will meet you there without haste. The red moon colored the stones like old blood. I thought of Rowan tearing the pendant from my throat. I thought of Celia's dagger. I thought of my mother marking weather in a ledger because one day someone might need proof that rain had fallen. I thought of myself walking out of Thornmere with nothing but documents and a wolf finally laughing at commands. I want time, I said. Take it. I want terms. Name them. Separate offices, equal council vote, no alpha command inside private rooms, no ceremonial necklace unless I design it. If we quarrel, no sleeping in public coldness to punish the household. If I say no, the conversation ends. If you say no, I listen. If either of us uses old wounds as weapons, the other names it. He absorbed each condition as if receiving battle orders. Accepted. You have not heard the worst one. Proceed. Vesper bites men who lie. You must earn her tolerance. At that, Cassian looked toward the stable yard with genuine concern. That horse is a menace. That horse has standards. He laughed again. This time I joined him. We did not bond under the red moon. We returned to work. Time did what declarations cannot. It tested. Winter tested us with famine in the East Valleys. Cassian wanted to seize private grain at once. I argued for audited purchase first, seizure only from hoarders proven against emergency law. He called that slow. I called his plan dangerous. We fought for an hour, then rode a third path that fed villages and preserved enough trust for spring planting. Spring tested us with a false abuse claim against a good captain. The protocol protected him without shaming the girl who had been pressured to lie by her uncle. Cassian wanted the uncle whipped. I wanted debt records first. The records exposed a land theft ring. The uncle went to prison, the girl kept her home, and the captain publicly thanked the process that had made him sweat. Summer tested us with desire. That was harder to put in law. Cassian kissed me after a storm broke over the South Watchtower. No audience, no music, no moon performing approval. Just rain, warm stone, and his hand stopping short of my waist until I stepped into it. I had been kissed before, as claim, apology, distraction, proof. This felt like a question he was willing to hear answered either way. I answered by pulling him closer. The world did not heal in that kiss. I did not become untouched by what had happened. But my body, which had learned to brace for being disbelieved, discovered one more room where it could choose. Choice is not a small magic. By the next red moon, the southern border had stabilized. Thornmere's Captain Council became permanent. Shadowmere's orphan houses were gone. The Ashbourne Protocol had traveled to 9 packs, though 3 pretended they had invented it themselves. Celia remained in the stone convent, where her copies of courier histories were accurate because every page was checked by 2 women immune to trembles. Rowan bonded Mara Stonebrook under a plain moon. He sent me notice, not invitation. I respected that. Mara sent a separate note. He has improved. I have clauses. If he backslides, I have boots. I kept that one. On the eve of the red moon, I rode alone to the ridge above Frostharrow. Vesper carried me with only moderate resentment. Below, the fortress glowed with feast lights. Above, the moon rose huge in copper, turning the river into a wound of fire. My wolf came forward. For years, she had lived half-crouched under the demands of rooms that wanted me gentle, grateful, patient, smaller. Now she stood inside me with her ears high. I thought leaving would feel like losing half my life. It had. Then the empty half became space. Space for law, space for rage used cleanly, space for laughter, space for a horse with teeth, a captain with terrible manners, a one-eyed teamster, rescued children learning not to hide bread, a northern lord who understood that restraint was not distance, and a self I had not met while busy being chosen. Footsteps sounded behind me. Cassian stopped several paces away. "May I join you?" I looked back. He wore no crown, no ceremonial armor, no blue, just a dark coat, wind-tangled hair, and the expression of a man trying not to hope too visibly. "You may." He came to stand beside me. For a while we watched the moon without speaking. Then I took a small object from my pocket. Not a pendant. A ring of black steel set with a narrow moonstone shaped like an open eye. I had designed it myself. The smith had asked whether it was for a lord. I said no. It was for a vow that intended to keep watching. Cassian saw it and went utterly still. "Careful. I am ready to discuss terms for a bond." His breath left him. "Discuss." Extensively. Naturally. With revisions. I expected ink. And witnesses. Of course. And no public claiming howl until I approved the wording. His mouth curved. "You intend to edit my howl?" "If it lacks precision." A terrifying prospect. "You may withdraw." "Never from precision." I laughed, and the sound went out over Frostharrow, over river ice, over black pine and old roads and every version of me that had once mistaken endurance for devotion. Cassian did not take the ring from my hand. He held out his palm. "Waiting." I placed it there. Not surrender. Offering. Under the red moon, my wolf stepped forward and touched his. No chain tightened, no command fell, no room demanded I shrink. The bond rose between us like a bridge built from oath, witness, desire, and earned trust. It did not erase Rowan. It did not sweeten Celia. It did not pretend betrayal had been a necessary road to happiness. Pain is not holy because something good follows it. But I had walked out. That mattered. I had carried proof when they wanted performance. I had chosen law when rage begged for spectacle. I had accepted help without becoming property. I had watched the man who broke my heart become someone else's lesson instead of my future. And now, when Cassian lifted my hand and touched his forehead to my knuckles, every wolf in Frostharrow below raised a howl. Not because I belonged to him, because their queen had chosen. The next morning, the formal negotiations began. Tamsin cried once and threatened to deny it under oath. Soren complained that marriage contracts should not require 5 maps, then added 3 better routes for emergency separation protocol. Mara arrived from Thornmere with boots muddy to the knee and a gift. The retired moonstone pendant melted into a plain silver seal for the Ashbourne Protocol archive. Rowan did not come. His letter was brief. May the vow be worthy of the woman making it. I read it twice. Then I placed it in the archive. Some stories end with forgiveness. Mine ended with architecture. We built courts that asked better questions. We built gates that did not depend on one man's mood. We built witness rooms where servants could speak without selling their futures. We built moonhouses for children trained to lie before they learned to read. We built marriage contracts with exits visible enough to make every entrance honest. Years later, singers still preferred the first hall. They loved the blood on Rowan's hands, the false refugee in white, the pendant torn from my throat, the northern lord waiting beyond the storm. They made Celia prettier, Rowan crueler, Cassian grander, and me less tired than I had been. Songs like Clean Edges. Life keeps splinters. When girls asked me for the true lesson, I did not tell them to wait for a stronger alpha. I told them to keep records. I told them to trust the small wrongness that pricks before proof is ready. I told them love without respect will ask you to bleed quietly for the comfort of someone else's certainty. I told them leaving is not failure when staying requires self-erasure. And when one bold child asked whether walking away hurt, I answered honestly. It did. She looked disappointed. So I added the part adults often hide. But the hurt had an edge. It cut the rope. Beyond the training yard, Frostharrow's bells rang for counsel. Cassian waited at the lower gate with 2 horses, 3 dispatches, and Vesper's latest attempt to bite his sleeve. He had earned her tolerance, not her respect. That would take another decade. I pinned the black steel ring at my throat, not as collar, not as proof, but as memory of the terms I had named before choosing joy. Then I went to work. Because revenge had opened the door. Freedom was what I built after walking through it.